Hello, Uta here with a bouquet of roses and one calla lily and some uh, dahlias. And I think I can get the mystic spirit into the screen. Yes, there we are. All right, now I'm going to do a reading from my memoir, In the Curated Woods, True Tales from a Grass Widow, which is published in 2022 and available from iuniverse.com/bookstore. Also from Amazon. You can read it on Kindle, or it comes in this soft cover with 50 nature photos from my garden. And I might have read this a long time ago, this particular section from my memoir, but it's a little bit about my mother, and I have been thinking about her. And so I decided to give it another go. Um, I am intending to do some commentary on the crazy chaos regarding men in women's sports at the Olympics. And of course, I did some comments about the opening ceremony. And I think that actually it's all good. I don't recommend uh, boycotting the Olympics at all. I love our gymnastics team. I just want to watch them do their amazing feats of physical prowess in the air over and over again. And not to mention, also, I absolutely love the mixed relay team of the 4x400 meter relay. It's just, I found that absolutely thrilling. I guess I've always loved the Olympics. Um, I used to think I liked these Winter Olympics better than the summer, but I think I like them equally. And so I think maybe more people in the world will peak. More politicians who say that they don't care about sports or women's sports or the changes that have been wrought on Title IX. Those politicians are going to have to answer some questions about all of this. And bravo to the World Boxing Organization for coming out and saying that those two dudes are males, and that's why they were, um, prevented from competing in some world championships of women's boxing. Um, oh, I wanted to show you this thing I made since this is about my mother. It's a little bit old and it had a more on it, but it's a little tiny diorama that I had sent to my mother with these cute little birds that I got at some kind of a hobby store. And that was because um, my older sisters and their husbands decided that my mother um, needed to go to hospice and be almost uh, forced out of her home at the age of 99 when she was diagnosed with um, congestive heart failure, but she lived for a year and a week in the hospice. And so all of this to me ties in with the controversies regarding medical assistance in death as well, and untoward influence from actual doctors for people to end their life when perhaps um, they would have preferred to do it more naturally. So that is this little artifact is something that I had made, and I sent her a letter a day for that year and a week, except for the times when I was visiting her. And of course, some of that is in my memoir as well. because I was writing just the year after she died. Anyway, so uh, this is all for Lorraine, in whose memory I also have a garden by our local small town post office. This is the tale of the ritual ironing ceremony. It happened several years in a row at the end of the month as I packed up from our July at my parents' house there on Sego Road. This is Madison, Wisconsin. I readied myself to row through that series of ever smaller circles, the goodbyes. First with my parents and then with my young sons as they went off to have their August with Nettie's side of the family. I'll never forget the first time of this month-long separation, when 4-year-old Orrin looked out from the back window of the car for a few blocks, waving until they turned. As I knew he couldn't understand why I wasn't joining them. This was this conspiracy that Nettie and Nettie's family forced me into to not tell our children until later what Nettie was intending to do with his body and his identity. So my children, who were 4 and 7, really couldn't understand why I wasn't coming along on this vacation. Until they turned out of sight. I wanted to collapse in tears there on Canal Street in Chicago. This is right outside of Union Station, where I then took the train back to New York City. We'd never had that kind of separation in his young life. I gathered myself together and called my parents to tell them I managed to get through it. I knew that they were just imagining it and talking to each other and thinking about me. And I wanted them to know I did it, and I'm not collapsing, and I'm calling you and telling you that I'm okay. I probably felt like I was going to collapse. Oh, my bouquet is dripping, so I'm going to try to... Okay. A little comic relief there. I gathered myself together and called my parents to tell them I managed to get through it. The children's clothes in the bags stowed in that trunk were nicely ironed, as it happened, but not by me. I know my mother's ironing very well. There seemed to be quite a lot of it way back when. It was so companionable to sit on the couch down in the den on a weekday morning. I had afternoon kindergarten. I was allowed to sleep through the hustle and bustle of the early before-school breakfasts. This is of my older sisters. It was a royal experience. Me eating Mom's famously good cinnamon toast and she steaming those funnels and crunches out of the plaid pedal pushers or the hand-me-down dresses. Those dresses had hand-sewn tucks and piping with a buttery finish in the fabric from all the washings. I didn't yet have an inkling of the cool vintage vibe the old stuff would acquire when it became groovy about a decade later. And yes, I did have some really great hand-me-downs that were probably hand-sewn in the 1930s or 40s when I was a teenager in groovy late 1960s Madison, Wisconsin. Mom ironed right through Captain Kangaroo and the Friendly Giant, laughing at the in-jokes between Mr. Green Jeans and Captain K, and reminding me she had gone to school with the actual Friendly Giant back in Stoughton, Wisconsin. I knew right away that it was the miniature furniture on the set that made him so big, and was glad Mom had the real facts to back me up. If the day before had been a big wash day, perhaps the ironing went all the way through to Jack LaLanne, and if I was lucky, she'd be done. We'd have to try those jumping jacks together. Little did she know that I'd later dance rather seriously, and this early training in coordinated movement, hokey as it was, where am I? might have seeded the interest. The hiss of steam from the press cloth was a counterpoint to the morning show soundtracks. They were happy sighs from a well appreciated machine. I think it was even the old kind of iron that really didn't have a steam place in it. You had to use the damp cloth. And of course, those were the cottons. There was no permanent press back then. I remember I originally wrote this as a piece for a class I was taking, a continuing education writing class, and I called this piece Permanent Press. It should have been no surprise then that Mom became so quick and clever at catching the clothes I was laundering as they tumbled to a stop in the dryer down there in 1996. Same house, same basement. She then ironed and folded my khaki shorts and capri pants. I would have been packing our food bag, tracking down tickets, and checking drawers and closets before the trek down to Chicago on the Van Galder bus, and then alone on Amtrak's Lakeshore Limited. I would have been suppressing that tightness in my throat, that set of funnels and crunches you cannot will out of your voice, making it impossible to look at anyone. The next year, and the year after that even, I couldn't win this race to get to the dryer at the moment the cycle finished. Lorraine and I were in our own little Olympics. I stopped advocating that within about 27 hours of suitcase life ahead of them, these clothes weren't going to stay pressed. I did try to come in first in the race, but could never out-clever my mother. She wasn't very sportif, but she was very good at knowing when the dryer had stopped. The year I named it the ritual ironing ceremony was when she went one step further. I came upstairs after packing, finding the food bag with her famously good chocolate chip cookies and the best tasting sandwiches you've ever had all set on the table. And yes, I had like a separate inside bag that my children took along with them, despite the fact that they were then going to be like on an overnight car trip out west to the Rocky Mountains with food that, of course, she had made. I wanted to be in the running for that competition using my mother's sandwiches and cookies. Maybe I made the bread. Then I turned my gaze to find Mom at the dining room table, making her generation's small perfect stitches in the hemming project I had stowed in the food bag. She half finished the work I had planned to occupy our entire bus trip, to distract from thoughts of my next set of goodbyes. I thank her from the bottom of my heart. In the yin and yang of our relationship, I'm fortunate to have these recollections. I will note, though, that the focus on ironed clothes, appearances, and the like fulfills the expectations imposed on a woman born in 1919, whose appearance in public should be proper, not too wrinkled or disheveled. This must have been particularly strong for her, as the third child and the second daughter of a Lutheran minister in 1920s Wisconsin. Yes, and now I'm going to go and iron my placemats. Please enjoy nature. Don't let it drip on your computer. And always be glad for the happy memories.